Alright guys, this is going to be the Game 5 of Misfits versus SKT series. The speed is again set to ×2. So this is going to be a speed VOD review. So this is match point for both teams. Obviously, SK Telecom have the momentum in their favor. Tristana picked up first for SKT. Misfits responds with Sejuani. Varus now picked up. Don't really like Varus pick to come out as proactively as what Misfits doing right now, and primarily just because I think that he's usually going to want to wait for more of the team comps to be developed before you just pick him. One of the things that they could be thinking, though, is that they don't want to get pinched in the second ban phase if they don't elect to take an ADC right now, but there's other AD carries that are available right now that could have been picked. The most obvious one to me is obviously Kog'Maw, but doesn't look like that's something that they want to do. It doesn't look like they want to go that route. Rakan now being hovered after the Jarvan and Jace is locked in for SK Telecom, so lots of aggression coming out of their side. It is Blank in this game instead of Peanut. And Thresh locked in instead for Ignar. I like that a lot better because you put him on a carry support, something that can make a lot of playmaking, a lot of roaming. So we're going to the second ban phase. Trundle being banned away by Misfits, and this is super weird because I guess that's insinuating that the Jace is going to be mid lane, or that they're anticipating that Faker is going to pick the Jace mid. Cho'Gath now banned away by SKT, or maybe they're doing that just so that SK Telecom doesn't have the luxury of putting Jace in mid, but at that point you're going to have an all-physical team composition. A little bit weird. Shen locked in immediately for Misfits. SK Telecom responding by hovering the Tahm Kench. Really good into the Thresh pick. Also really good just against a lot of the champions that Misfits has available right now. They have, it's going to be able to eat someone out of Sejuani. It's going to be able to eat someone out of the Taunt. And Talia being locked in for Faker. In the end, I really like SKT's team composition except for the Jace up in top lane. If this was going to be Longzhu or something, I would love their team composition regardless of the Jace, but I'm not going to give Huni as much credit as I would give to Khan on that champion. Nonetheless, the final team compositions are decided. Power of Evil picking the Syndra, and so these team comps are very straight up. Basically, one of the things that you're looking for is what is going to happen up in top lane. Huni is an integral part of the SKT team composition with that Jace. He needs to get ahead of the Shen. He needs to maintain pressure. He needs to establish a CS lead so that he's relevant in the mid game. If he falls behind, it is such a fucking burden for the rest of SKT. Tristana is the insurance policy. She is the endless scaling that Misfits will not have a proper answer to. Power of Evil picking the Syndra, I think, is a little bit ballsy, but nonetheless, we're going to see exactly how it turns out. Misfits looking for a little bit of a cheesy play. Huni not going to be caught off guard by that, but they are stacking as a 5-man. Doesn't really matter too much as SKT are just spreading out. So again, if we look at all the team compositions, basically what we're looking for is Maxlor has to counter/match gank up in top lane anytime that Alphari is going to be under pressure or if he's in any sort of danger. And the other thing that we have to look at is, he has to maintain pressure for Power of Evil. The places that Maxlor is going to be looking to play around are going to be bottom lane, obviously with that Thresh, be able to make ganks with the Flay hook, the Lantern plays, etc. that they can set up for Maxlor to enable him to close a lot of ground. The other thing is that Blank, however, does have a pretty easy path to approach into bottom lane with that Tahm Kench if Hansama and Ignar are actually shoving Bang & Wolf underneath the turret. It's going to make it a pretty easy access point for Blank to just go around through the Tri-Brush. Once Faker has level 6, it becomes really difficult for Misfits to play the lane out unless Power of Evil has priority and pressure in mid lane, which ultimately is going to attack Maxlor. The only thing, though, is that once Alphari has 6, they're going to have to be respectful for that. And so I've never actually watched this game yet. I know the result, but there's definitely a lot of potential for sparks to fly at level 6 down in bottom in a 4-on-5 type scenario where they call out the Stand United from Alphari, and that leaves Huni up in top lane to split and look for damage on his own. But we'll see what happens in this game. Looks like Huni trying his best to zone out Blank. Blank actually ends up getting the smite. Really fucking ballsy by Alphari and Maxlore to even go for that. That's just a gigantic coin flip. Ends up actually costing Alphari his life. He also does not have his flash. Then again, Blank and Huni don't either, but the first blood on the Jace is a lot more valuable. And obviously he is able to conserve his teleport. So now what this means is that Alphari, he's going to have his teleport available right around the time he would be hitting level 6 anyway. So that common Shen play is still going to come into effect. But he doesn't have any other luxury outside of that. And if he gets pressured enough early on, or if he has to deal with Huni after this first recall, things can get really ugly. And now the thing that this ends up doing is that Maxlore is basically forced to path back up to top lane because he can't let Alphari take too much of a beating, or what ends up occurring is that if Huni gets the bounce into the turret, then the wave bounces back and Alphari is actually down on items. He's down on pressure, down on sustain, and he doesn't have a reliable enough way to stay inside of the laning phase without the assistance of his jungler. And this lets Huni go into like this zoning mode, and if Blank is ever around, because Alphari never has priority in the lane, he can never get proper vision control to know whether or not he's at risk. Now, what's occurring right now, though, is that Power of Evil obviously took the trade with Faker, and mid lane Faker's actually recalled, so this is actually a really nice pressure relief for Maxlore. So he's going to be able to transition from his Wraith camp into trying to find Blank, maybe at the Scuttle Crab or something, and try to provide some sort of vision coverage for Alphari. Bottom lane trains are going standard. Also important to note, coin on Thresh. Blank now up here in top lane, and this is just making it so that Huni can do whatever it is that he wants. Unfortunately, though, for SK Telecom, Maxlore appears up in top lane. I think this is completely okay for Misfits. So now basically Huni is forced to break the wave into the turret, and this is the type of bounce that he would normally be looking for. It's going to cause the minions to stockpile up and then move into him. But it's occurring at a point where he's forced to expend all of his mana because he knows that Maxlore is in close proximity. So Huni doesn't actually intend to stay around in this laning phase for more than another minute or so. So he's actually just going to keep the wave underneath the turret, and you can see that he's continuously just crashing it in. Now, what you could do, in some cases, you can crash this wave into the turret and you can get the bounce right now. But without that mana being available to him, I don't see that as, you know, something that's really going to be that likely. Blank and Maxlore just sort of spotting each other out. Really like what Blank is sort of doing. He's just sticking on top of Maxlore. Now his mid laner is here. So Maxlore got a lot of value for his team. Faker's now re-arrived back into mid lane, though. He has the Superior buy over Power of Evil. I like the Mercury Treads as the first item. Provides a lot of utility in that laning phase. Obviously helps against the Syndra stun. It's going to provide a lot of value later on into the game against the Sejuani and the Syndra, etc. I really like the roam that he's doing up in top lane right now. And they end up getting the flash out of Alphari. And Huni's continuing to actually auto-attack the wave, which is really interesting because you feel like he would have been able to bleed this lane a lot better than he chose to. One of the interesting things to note, though, is that Alphari actually already used his teleport, so if SK and Telecom can actually manage to create some sort of pressure down in bottom lane and get the Stand United out of the Shen, if they can successfully disengage, it's going to enable Huni to get about 2 waves ahead of Alphari, which is essentially a kill, and it probably means that he's guaranteed to get first blood turrets. So, really like the state of the game that SKT has gotten for themselves, and you can see that Huni, he's just going full out assault onto the Shen. He's trying to get as much turret damage down as possible. He has absolutely no intention of trying to freeze the wave, have it come into them, zone out Alphari, and, you know, play the lane out that way. Because what it does is, yes, you zone them out, yes, you freeze it, but there's still plays that Alphari could try to make across the map. And it doesn't guarantee that you can successfully stop that, and right now I really like what Misfits are doing. They're going for the Infernal Drake. You can see Huni continuing to try to dish out as much damage as humanly possible. I think it's kind of unacceptable that SK Telecom allow this to be snuck underneath their noses. Credit to Misfits for managing to make it work. Faker has the blue buff as well as Power of Evil, and you can see that SKT are just trying to get First Blood Turret. Infernal Drake over First Blood Turret is always going to be more valuable. Maxlore ends up missing the ultimate. Faker doesn't even actually have to use any summoner spells. So right now, SK Telecom, they're ahead on the gold score, but you have to factor in exactly how valuable is that Infernal Drake for some of the members on Misfits, and then exactly what is that going to do for them later on into the game. It's obviously going to be a super big ramp. One of the things, though, that Huni's going to be able to do is with that First Blood turret down, he's actually free, he's unlocked elsewhere on the map. But the problem is that with the Infernal Drake going down, there's not a clear-cut objective for him to rotate to. So he comes back up to top lane, he shoves in the wave. And I think that all he's trying to do now is just kind of counter-jungle Maxlore's camps. He wants to obviously eat the golems anytime that they're up, and then he can look to try to run down into mid lane to help out Faker whenever it's possible, and obviously eat the Wraith camps and try to get some intel for his teammates on exactly, where's the whereabouts of Maxlore. Don't like how super aggressive he's continuing to play this, though, walking up to the Shen. Yes, he's still able to exert pressure. He's able to get out a lot of damage and get some turret damage down onto that top tier, too. But I think there's more value to be gained by forcing Shen to crash the wave into you and then waiting and going back up to the top lane and then ultimately freezing it. Because then it basically says to Shen that he has nowhere to go. There's no dragon to go to. It's Talia in mid lane. He's never going to make a play against that. There's no way they can coordinate a Stand United play in bottom lane without SKT being able to resist it. And then Huni could use that to actually, increase his advantages over the Shen and ultimately accrue level advantages. Zoning him out of all of the XP is super, super big. Puts the Shen behind a lot. Ends up missing that Shock Blast on trying to get the red. And the game is going into a little bit of a lull state. Misfits managing to keep up, for the most part, across the board in CS, with the major deficit being in mid lane. But Hansama only down by 12, which I think is completely fine, given the matchup and everything. Cloud Drake spawning in a minute and 30, and they go for the play on Power of Evil. He ends up actually getting out. And Blank and Bang go down. I mean, we can look at this one more time. Looks like they went a little too far back. Okay. So, looks like they want to set up the play on the Syndra, but they don't have any intel on the left-hand side of the map. So they're looking to pincer the Syndra, but they don't know that Maxlore is actually there, and then the Stand United comes in. And this is just them not respecting the Fog of War, not respecting where Maxlore could be. And it's also a little bit suspicious that they would go for that move, considering the vision that they did have on the right-hand side. They could use no information as information and deduce that, Maxlore could be in close proximity to the mid lane. Definitely very surprising. You can see this one more time, and this is what I'm talking about. You can see all this vision on the right-hand side, and you know that Maxlore is not around here. You already see Varus up in top lane, which means that Thresh has to be elsewhere. And so you have to really wonder exactly what they're thinking when they try to make this play. Maybe they're just they're underestimating Misfits' ability to respond, and they think they can actually blow up Syndra before any other response could actually take place. But I think that's pretty much it. Bang now going to get bottom tier 1. Cloud Drake is up. It's going to be a little bit more beneficial for SK Telecom to try to capture that Cloud Drake than giving it to Misfits. They can make use of it a little bit more with the Jarvan and the Talia, and obviously the Jace anytime he's trying to run around the map with the acceleration gate to conserve his own teleport. And it looks like they're going for another Tahm Kench play with the Abyssal Voyage. Not really liking how aggressive they're trying to be with this Abyssal Voyage. Not really getting too much out of it. They do have the luxury of just trying to scale up. I don't know why they're not trying to take it. Play the game a little bit slower. Now it looks like the Rift Herald is going to be capitalized by Misfits. And I think that for the most part their map movements at this point are alright. They get the Rift Herald for themselves, and they definitely want to use that to bust open the mid-tier 1. Super, super, super important to do that against the likes of Talia. A lot of other mid lane champions I've talked about, I think even in earlier VOD reviews, where I've talked about this concept. SK Telecom managed to sniff that one out. Really good. They did not want to get caught right there. If one of their key members would have just gotten caught and blown up, then it could have ended up resulting in the loss of two turrets, given the fact that they had the Herald available. Huni, with that red buff and now with Bang, going to be able to raise that mid-tier 1 turret. So Misfits continue to fall down, but when you factor in that Infernal Dragon, they're not really behind in the gold department. Now the Rift Herald being summoned, it's so important that they actually crack this mid-tier 1. They don't end up successfully getting it, or at least it doesn't seem like they were able to get it. It is extremely low on HP, but still, that's entirely different from having it at like 1 HP or 2 auto attacks or something away. Infernal Drake coming up again. Misfits obviously need to get that away from SKT. Super, super good for their Varus, especially because he's going for the Gwinsus. Varus does have hybrid type of damage coming out of him, and then obviously Syndra is going to love any amplification to her damage. Huni now down in bottom lane, being ultra fucking aggressive with this Jace. Super, super surprising to see how he's choosing to play out this Jace game. And that's going to be another turret going down to Huni. Now he ends up running away. He has the tier, and you know that tier is actually enabling him to play as aggressive and as forward as he's playing. And so it's a little bit of a stylistic difference compared to some of the other Jaces that we're used to seeing, especially Korean Jaces, but it's managing to pay off because Alfari can't actually sustain against the assault that, you know, Huni's able to dish out because of all the excess mana that he normally has that a Jace would otherwise not have. Right now, again, the game is in a little bit of a lull state. And all that they have to do is basically continue to let SKT, all that SKT needs to do is continue to try to execute this 1-3-1. Misfits don't have a really good way at responding to it because they're extremely immobile, and the fact that SK Telecom have that Cloud Drake available to them makes it a lot better for them playing this kind of a style. Infernal Dragon coming up now in 30 seconds. Don't know why Faker's running up to top lane. It would be infinitely more valuable to just stay around the dragon, make sure that you get the Scuttle Crab, make sure that you get the vision control around it. Really don't know why they just conceded vision. They conceded the choke point and the threshold into the river to Misfits. Really, really disastrous. This entire thing could have just been avoided if Faker just didn't go to top lane. And you can't make the argument that he's looking for a buy or anything because clearly that wasn't the case. Second Infernal, going over to Misfits. This is stuff that, you know, SK Telecom, they can't afford to let this keep happening. It's super, super bad. Because suddenly what it does is it enables Syndra, and it enables Syndra to basically have lethal when she shouldn't, you know, in normal situations. And that means that you actually have to position differently, and you have to play around, you know, certain scenarios and dances a little bit differently than you otherwise would have to if, say, that was 2 Ocean Drakes or 2 Cloud Drakes or something. So Misfits RNGing like gods right now in this game number 5, and it honestly just looks like everything's stacked against SKT, you know, in terms of everything is not going their way. The Cloud Drake, which they were able to capitalize on, they were in position to capitalize on, it's an okay Drake. They can definitely make use of it with that 1-3-1, but it's not the best dragon that they would have hoped for. Obviously, they would have loved an Infernal Dragon, or they would have loved a Cloud Drake as well. When being caught out, being a little bit too over-aggressive. And this isn't the type of play that he should even be trying to make by trying to, you know, pull away a lot of attention from the left-hand side of the map. Because SK Telecom, yes, they have a Leandris, but it's not like they have a Mountain Drake. They don't have other ways of shredding through that Baron. It's not like they have a Cho'Gath or anything like that. I feel like it's being a little bit overzealous with his pushing. And Misfits are definitely in an extremely stable spot. The gold score at the top is kind of irrelevant. Those Infernal Drakes are just too valuable right now. It's definitely putting Misfits in the lead, and another Infernal Drake is spawning, so as long as everything goes really well, they should be in position to actually win the game. Now they're starting up the Baron. They actually killed Huni. He does have the teleport available, so we're going to see what happens here. And they actually turn onto SKT, which is a little bit surprising. So they have the higher smite. They have the ultimate on Maxlore. I think that if Ignar actually just walked out and activated the box to slow everyone down, and Maxlore throws his ulti backwards, I think that you just actually take the Baron off the map. And I think with the Baron off the map, I think that it becomes infinitely easier to fight because Huni is not going to be coming to the fight. So I think a little bit of indecisiveness coming out of Misfits right there ends up costing them. And yeah, this is super weird. Super, super, super weird. You can't make plays like this. There's absolutely no reason to turn off the Baron at that point. You throw the Sejuani ult backwards, you go forward as Ignar, you cast the box, you do everything that you can to slow them down. Even if one member dies, it's fine, you got the Baron. They can't actually resist against the Baron. Then the Baron comes into play, it skews the lanes in your favor, enabling you to be in position and have priority over the upcoming Infernal Drake. And once you get the third Infernal Drake, I don't know how you possibly actually lose the game. Because that Baron is going to get you so much value in terms of gold. It's going to get you so much value in terms of killing wards of SKT that they're going to be constantly trying to battle over inside of their own red side jungle, leading up to the Infernal Drake. It's going to let you probably even get 2 turrets down in bottom lane. Unlikely to get you top tier 2 turret, unlikely to probably get you mid tier 2 turret, but you should realistically be able to get the Infernal Drake and then 2 bottom tier 2 turrets. Definitely think that was a game-winning Baron. Misfits now, they have the 3rd Infernal. So this is literally the dream scenario. SKT, they are all in on this Baron. If this Baron actually backfired, SK Telecom would lose this fight. They would lose the game for sure. Misfits are in what should actually be an unlosable position. Hansama getting the red buff. Faker obviously looking tilted right now. It just doesn't matter about the gold lead. Normally, SK Telecom would have had superior scaling, but these 3 Infernal Drakes are just making it way too problematic for them. The other thing that I really like is Alfari has the Titanic Hydra, and so he's making some usage of that Infernal Drake. Obviously, Shen's going to get a lot of use on his own, just getting the base AD, or the AD ramp. And now Misfits again going for the Baron. And they turn yet again. Let's just look at this again. The way that they're doing these Barons are so weird. There's no reason for Ignar to have been cut off. It doesn't make any sense why SK Telecom are able to constantly keep moving them off this Baron. Their execution with, trying to secure it is just really, really, really bizarre. And this is actually enabling SKT to somehow remain in this game. Misfits now continuing their dance, and SK Telecom. I love the fact that they're trying to use guerrilla warfare to get back into the game. Weaver's Wall comes out from Faker, and so now if you're looking at this as Misfits, you can see that they don't know what to do. Now this is really interesting to see a Titan like SK Telecom having to make use of guerrilla warfare to crawl back in the game to find an opening against Misfits and to try to beat them. You can definitely tell that Misfits are probably unfamiliar with this scenario. This is not a spot that you're going to get to practice a lot in scrims. It's also extremely uncommon to be able to get 3 Infernal Drakes even when you are inside of the scrims. The correct decision, if you are Misfits, is to try to tap one of the lanes. Okay, so it's either going to be top lane or it's going to be bottom lane. You tap one of those lanes into a slow push. And then once that lane is slow pushing, you group as an engine or just a giant fucking machine, and you force them to come to you. It's a very classic scenario that occurred in StarCraft 2. You can find examples of this occurring in pro play, Season 4, 5, 6. There's definitely games that come into my memory where you make that sort of a play. It is a mistake to constantly try to juggle the aggro, and this is a trap that a lot of lower level teams or teams that are not practiced and they're not adept enough at handling 1-3-1. This isn't just a standard 1-3-1 either. This is a very volatile 1-3-1, mostly because of the Jace and the Talia component being able to reach so much range. But basically all that they needed to do was tap top lane, and once they tap top lane, they just go 4-man mid, and they basically force SK Telecom to bend to their will, and then they back up through SKT's blue side jungle. They get all the vision control, and they force SK Telecom to be the ones that have to fight into the fog of war. And then you can use that temporary downtime to fix the other lane that was, being skewed by SKT, by Huni, or by Faker, whoever the hell it was going to be, getting pushed by, skewed by, whatever, and then you fix that. And then again, rinse, wash, repeat. So right now, SKT still ahead on gold, but it doesn't really matter because they're still behind. And look at that damage. He has no magic resist outside of a Mercury Tread. But because Power of Evil was there, it actually enabled SK Telecom to actually pick off Ignar. And now Power of Evil doesn't have his ultimate available. Weaver's Wall coming out. And look at this. Alphari is actually being forced to TP into the fight. This is, oh my god, that's a nail biter of a situation. If any of the members of SKT went down, this game would have just ended. So Huni is still dead. Power of Evil almost has his ultimate available to him. And remember, triple Infernal Drake. Oh! What the fuck? Holy shit. They didn't deserve to win. The better team on this day lost. Actually, can you say that when SKT juggled them in spots that shouldn't have been juggled? I think that Misfits were playing a lot better than SKT at multiple parts of the game. In so many ways throughout the series, they were playing better in certain areas. They clearly lacked practice and expertise on very, very thin spots in the game that SKT was clearly more fucking vetted in. And that actually let SK Telecom juggle games, dance games back into a winnable position. And it let SKT, like in this game, it's obvious that Misfits does not know how to properly coordinate their position with the 3 Infernals or the 2 Infernals and respond to the 1-3-1 that SKT was dishing out. Misfits RNG'd, well, actually, you know what, no. Better team didn't lose this day. But Misfits put up a super good showing. There's a lot of RNG factors that came into play, like the Infernal Drakes, not just in this game, but in previous games. This is so weird. This is so weird. Seeing how they won the game is just... wow. Huni coming in with the flank. Holy shit. This is like in a horror movie when like someone kills a person, right? But you don't actually see them die. You know, they die off camera. They're not really dead. Fucking Huni comes in. Oh my god. He hit Power of Evil over the head like he reminded Power of Evil. He's like, listen, The Walking Dead returns. Huni came in like Negan, dude. Holy shit. He had to let him know The Walking Dead returned today. Oh my god. Wait. What? Wait! Wait! Cinder Hulk? No! No. I don't think that was the Q damage. There's no Q damage on screen. That's from Tristana. No, does 2 smites still appear like that? Wait, I thought 2 smites would show the 15-second cooldown. Wait a minute. Doesn't it do that in the replay feature? Does it not do that? Wait a minute. Let me go back to the beginning of the game. Yeah, it does. He didn't have 2 smites. Wait, really? Oh, no, he didn't. He just got his first smite. That's his first smite. He got the heal for the smite? Oh, he did. Okay. That looked really weird because I thought that it said that the dragon had been... Alright, that's really weird. Alright, anyways, that's it for this VOD review.